Thank you. Thank you. My Lords, I speak to Clause 191, and my amendment, this clause should not stand part of the bill. Our role as parliamentarians, and especially in this House, is to ensure that laws that make it onto the statute book are safe. Good laws require careful thought and prior consideration regarding any unintended consequences. Clause 191 fails to meet these criteria and should not become law. It was hastily added to an unrelated bill and concerns a proposal that was neither a government manifesto commitment nor called for by the public, nor subject to even rudimentary scrutiny. Let me be clear. The law change proposed by Clause 191 does not primarily relate to one's views on abortion, on which there will be a range of perspectives in this House. The abortion debate is often presented as pitting the rights of a woman against the rights of an unborn child at varying stages of development. It is not accidental that the legal limit for abortion is 24 weeks. That roughly marks the stage at which the baby is fully viable when born. This clause does not even fail to consider that person, but it would also endanger the mother. Laws exist for a variety of reasons, and sometimes they exist to deter us from doing things that would cause significant harm to ourselves or others, out of motives that may be devious or simply desperate. The current law prohibiting women from performing their own abortions after 24 weeks is one such law. The existing legal deterrent protects women. For example, if a partner seeks to pressure a woman into an abortion beyond the 24-week limit, a limit which I note is already double that common in most European countries, a woman can currently point to the criminal law as a reason for not doing so. Removing this would make it much harder for vulnerable women to resist such pressure and would be particularly troubling given the dangers of unsupervised, self-induced abortions later in pregnancy. There is, I think, a supreme irony that those who claim to support legal abortion on the basis that the alternative would be unsafe, illegal abortions, are now proposing that women can perform these illegal abortions. I mean, abortions outside of the terms of the Abortion Act in an unsafe environment. This law change would effectively reintroduce backstreet abortion, as women would not be able to have terminations in a clinic beyond the 24-week limit, but could do so at home, on their own, without the prospect of any subsequent investigation, using pills not designed for use outside of a clinical context beyond 10 weeks. The potential consequences are terrifying.
Does the noble lady accept that none of these things have happened in Northern Ireland? When we changed the law and decriminalised abortion in Northern Ireland several years ago, that literally none of the things that the noble lady is mentioning have happened, nor in any of the other 50 countries where abortion is legal, where abortion is being decriminalised.
To that.
If the noble lady will bear with, we can't have an intervention on an intervention if she allows the response and then.
Thank you for your intervention. The potential consequences are terrifying, leading to more women.
I thank the noble lady for giving way. Is the noble lady aware that despite the very extreme abortion regime that was imposed upon Northern Ireland by the other place, that actually there is no telemedicine in Northern Ireland? That's the one thing we do not have.
I received a letter from a former paediatric practitioner deeply concerned about this proposed legislation. She points out that when babies are legally aborted for medical reasons at over 22 weeks gestation, they are first euthanized by lethal injection into the heart. This is recommended by the Royal College of Obstetrics and Gynecology to prevent larger, sentient babies from being delivered injured but still alive. She asks if Clause 191 becomes law, and if this form of feticide is not performed, abortion medication is taken, and the baby is born alive, what then will happen? And contrary to claims of supporters of Clause 191, women are not facing lengthy prison sentences for illegal abortions. The most high-profile case in recent years of a woman who was 32 to 34 weeks pregnant but admitted misleading the British Pregnancy Advisory Service by telling them she was 7 weeks pregnant resulted initially in a short prison sentence, which was quickly suspended on appeal. Sarah Catt was convicted in 2012 for a 39-week abortion, having been described by the Chief Inspector who led the investigation as cold and calculating. The judge in the case on appeal, Mrs. Justice Rafferty, said, "Mrs. Catt caused the death of a fetus at term. She planned what she did with some care. She ensured that when she delivered the infant, it was in private. Somewhere there is a body." Under Clause 191, it would not even be permissible for the police to have investigated such a case. When Tonia Antoniazzi, the proposer of this clause, was interviewed by the House magazine and asked about this particular case, she said, "If you can be cold and callous, you need to be helped, and you need to be taken out of the criminal system. That opens an extraordinary vista." A tiny proportion of the hundreds of thousands of abortions a year have resulted in women facing prosecution. But the solution to these cases is not to decriminalise abortion to term for women in relation to their own pregnancies, but rather to restore in-person consultations before women are able to obtain abortion pills to enable a reliable gestational age check to take place. It is for this reason that I support Amendment 460, tabled in the name of my noble friend, Baroness Stroud. Maya Ellis, one of the Clause 191 supporters in the other place, said that a woman should not be criminalised for anything to do with or within her body. This, of course, is the case for absolute decriminalisation of abortion in any circumstances. And that is the true intention of the proposers of this clause. But it means that the viable unborn child, up to full term, would have the moral status of property, just as a slave did in the American Deep South in the 18th century. No one could be criminally liable for the destruction of their own human property. I do not consider this progressive. We are told that Clause 191 is a moderate change to the law that would not affect the 24-week time limit. However, given that most abortions now take place outside of a clinical setting without an in-person consultation, the 24-week time limit would become redundant. Women could simply tell an abortion provider they are below the legal limit, and in all likelihood, they would be sent the pills by post. It is for this reason that a legal deterrent underpinning the 24-week limit is more important in the current context. Clause 191 is not moderate, it is radical, and its effect is to decriminalise abortions of babies up to birth if a woman seeks to induce a termination late in pregnancy by obtaining easily acquired pills. The Crime and Policing Bill is an important and lengthy piece of legislation which this House has been debating at committee for 2.5 months. The bill was not designed and is not an appropriate forum to bring further widening of already highly permissive abortion laws. It is astonishing that this House has been asked to consider such a far-reaching law with so little prior scrutiny. Abortion providers, alongside the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynaecologists, lobbied for the pills by post scheme introduced during the pandemic. It is remarkable that rather than reverse this scheme, that they seek an even more radical law that would cover up the consequences of their scheme and make further such cases more likely. Along with all members of this House, I received a letter from the Public Affairs Manager of the Royal College asking me to speak in favour of Clause 191 to the Crime and Policing Bill at committee stage on Monday the 2nd of February. This was in bold type. It quoted the President of the Royal College criticising the law for affecting women at the most vulnerable times and said that women should not face the prospect of a criminal sanction for making decisions about their own health care. I find it striking that in this statement there was not a single mention of the unborn child. It is as if such a person does not exist, morally or physically. We often use the phrase, the elephant in the room, which everyone knows about but is never mentioned. This is the baby in the room. When we talk about the most vulnerable, surely we must mean that human being. For all these reasons, this clause must not stand.